I think those.
They already have robots that are doing that, and people are running them over. Anyway, all right, so we're going to talk about AI and cybersecurity specifically. However, we're going to look at, the worst case scenario here first, which is AI plus robotics means no jobs for humans. And the only reason I mention this is because of two things. One, the way the experts out there are saying that that's not going to happen. And two, because the only way to deal with this issue is socially. In other words, you need to know that as you guys move through this progress of AI and robotics becoming better and better, how far do you want this to go? Because they will replace every job. There's no reason why they can't. And I always mention this because there's two things that the experts will say. We're screwed. This is nuclear. This is worse than a nuclear bomb. We're screwed as a society. We have to say this is where we don't use them. And then the other is, oh no, it's going to be great. All the robots will do stuff. They'll be like our slaves. And then we'll just have like a basic income that businesses will pay to us so that we'll keep buying stuff, right? So the economy still works. And the problem with that notion is that society's never proven that to be true.
That never worked.
That never works. I mean, I hate to say it, but prior to prior to the 1800s, most places use slaves. So if you go back to Rome, which I think is an excellent example, which is why so many people talk about it, because when you go back to Rome, they were around for like 1,000 years. Yeah. Now it wasn't the same, right? They had emperors, they had kings, they had republics, they had different things in that 1,000 years, but they were still around.
The Roman Empire is still there.
Yes, and what killed them was they kept bringing back all these slaves. Now the poor people didn't get the slaves. No, the rich people got the slaves. Then see, the rich people don't have to hire a poor person to do it. So they don't have to feed them or give them money. So basically, the poor people just get poorer and the rich people get richer. And then eventually, the society, and if you look at it, they're just lazy. They're just totally lazy. And I imagine when massive troops come into Rome and decide to kill everybody, I don't think the poor people are lifting a finger to defend anything. I mean, why would they want to live in that society? So, in my opinion, there's nothing in history that proves that somehow we're going to have robots that are going to be our slaves and we'll just all travel around and do whatever we want. And
Better example why that wouldn't work isn't even the Roman Empire.
yeah, which one would it be?
Roman law. Because on one side you had normal people, on the other side you had Russian communists.
Yeah. Yeah, and you had to build a wall to keep people in.
Yeah, because they didn't want to be in communism.
Because yeah. But there's some arguments there because communism never works. What communism actually pushes as the agenda, which a lot of people in America are buying into because they're lazy, is that somehow we'll all just continue to be motivated to work, and that nobody in a higher situation will misuse their authority and just take all the stuff from you. Right. And that's what Eastern Europe was under that. It was like, well, I'm in power, so I'll take some food and you don't get any. Or you get less. Now go off to the factory we've told you to go to. Well, I want to be an artist. Nope. Go to the factory. People lose their incentive to work, and that's what people don't understand. But in any case, I just like to point this out because I think that socially, people are going to have to say, look, the line is drawn here. So only 10% of the workforce, or I don't know what the answer is, but there's going to have to be an answer for it. There really is. So I talk about this in 170. So this is just a little brief. That's why I talk about this. That's why in the beginning class, and people are like, Some people actually enjoy that part because they enjoy history. And then other people are like, oh, just teach me how to click where Windows needs me to click. But I go through it. So real quickly, tech revolutions, back when the mainframes came out, the place that they replaced first, I mean, the people they replaced first were in payroll and accounting. They replaced computers, people that computed. Nobody thinks about that. It's like a lost history. But if you're a bank, you have people over certain accounts. And when somebody comes in and deposits $40, you write it down and you calculate what their total is. And that's how they know what's in that person's account. You don't have a computer doing that. Well, as we see it, you had a person that you called a computer and they did it. So that was a tedious job. They needed a ton of them. It was slow. People don't work with numbers well. There was mistakes made. So naturally, hey, this thing will calculate perfectly every single time. What's the need? What need does this fill? Obviously scientific things, but economically, yeah, banks. Banks used them. Any business that was big that had to pay thousands of employees used them. And so all those people were laid off. Automation, that was the next thing. That's what they called it. You can actually watch TV shows from back then that talk about automation. What was happening? Well, computers were now being able to control other systems. How that can moves along the conveyor belt, all that stuff. That replaced mail workers initially. They use that magnetic ink. Anybody seen Catch Me If You Can? Oh, you got to watch Catch Me If You Can. Watch that. It's fantastic, based on a true story. But what it's based off of is that one of the first things they did is, gosh dang, mail sorting is terrible. And you know what we're using the mail for? James McBride has a checkbook. And that checkbook directly goes to, geez, what the oldest bank in Arizona was, Arizona something. Anyway, and so that's where my checkbook comes from. That's where my money is. But I go to New York, we're having a fun trip, and I got a checkbook, so I can just use these checks. Not everybody had credit cards back then. Right. So I got a checkbook. I'm writing checks for my meal. The person that gets that at whatever restaurant deposits it in their bank. Now their bank says, well, we got to get money from this Arizona bank. And so they invented these little Merck numbers that were magnetic ink. And then that way, instead of a person sitting and going, okay, Arizona, $40. Okay, so what's their address? This is their address. Let me fill out an envelope. Okay, here's the envelope. Send that check off to them with a notice saying you need to send us 40 actual dollars to us as the bank. All right. Imagine how long that takes. That's like 3 months before the bank actually over there can put into the account the $40 I spent buying that meal. Magnetic ink. Well, now we can just read the routing numbers on the bottom. This is the bank number. What type of bank it is? This is the routing number. This is the account number. So now we can just shove this through a system that has a computer tied to it. It reads it, and the computer then goes, oh, okay, I need to take this check and do this with it. Catch Me If You Can is about a guy that figures this out, and he's changing the numbers at the bottom. Then later on, he gets so good at it that he's printing his own checks with his own Merc at the bottom. That way he can kite all these checks. Basically what that means is I can go over there and say, yeah, I need the new suit, 1,500. Yeah, there you go. And it's going to take 4 months for that, process to finally go through, and he's gone by then. So it's a good movie to watch. Anyway, so that replaced a bunch of workers. This took decades. So you're talking about late 40s all the way down to the mid 60s. So you got about 20 years of time that mainframes take. This is where, not joking, this is where the experts are getting their information from. Then the PC revolution happens. Replace workers across every industry. Why? Because it made every worker more efficient. Now, every industry, not really. If you take like trucking or farming or something like that, that had less of an impact in those places because a lot of it is manual labor. In trucking, you get in and drive. So if you got a computer in trucking, you don't need two people in accounting. You just need one. Right? So that's where it affected things. But it was much quicker. PCs come in and are usable about 77. By 87, the industry has massively changed. So when you dealt with automation and you dealt with payroll, there was a few jobs created, but a lot of them were just gone. So as computers really get rolling out, and you're talking about PCs, so everybody can have one, not just businesses, it creates a need for more tech-savvy workers. Part of that is programming, coding. Part of that is networking. Part of that is all the stuff you do in IT. Then you have the internet revolution. Same thing. Made people more efficient. It wasn't really any different than the PC revolution. Communication became faster. And so it did the exact same thing as the PC revolution, created more savvy, need for more savvy tech workers. AI revolution will replace workers across every industry by making workers more efficient. So that's what's currently understood and being said. And that's why they're saying it. So as you learned in 170, hopefully you remember, there's a lot of businesses that went belly up during this entire time. So you're talking about from the late 40s all the way through basically 2010. And a lot of businesses just disappeared during that time because they didn't jump on the bandwagon and get going on it. So experts out there will say, oh yeah, don't worry about this so much because the AI revolution it'll create new jobs. We don't even know what the jobs are. It'll create new ones. Why do they say that? Well, because the internet revolution happened and it created jobs. We just didn't know where they were going to create it. That's why you need to go back to the first slide. Because it's not saying I am going to be more efficient. Ultimately, maybe over the next 40 years, it's saying we don't need you at all. We program this and we need no more surgeons because the AI robot can do it. As a matter of fact, they're better than you. We don't need anybody to drive a truck. The thing's been proven to be able to drive itself. And when it gets to the end, then we use a robot to unload the thing and unpackage it and put it in the next truck. You can think of any job. Like I was in one meeting and they said, you know what's safe from AI? Roofing. It's like, that's the dumbest thing in the world. Have you not thought about robotics? Yeah, they're going to have a robot that stands up there and is better than you. And if they fall off, they don't get hurt. And they'll do the roofing. You won't.
Heck, it may not even need to stand up there. It'd probably be more like a crane.
It could be, especially if you're doing a lot of houses, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what do we need to worry about then? Well, in the short run, in other words, over the next 20 years or so, this is the part we don't know. We don't know how rapidly it's going to get better. And I'll talk about that in a minute. You have to focus on understanding concepts and linking them to hard skills. That's why I tell you that in the classes. And that is not easy. You guys think that's easy? Is that easy for you? That's usually not easy. The whys are more important than the hows. And that's always been that way in technology because the hows change. How do we get this done in Windows? How do we get this done on Mac? How do we get this done on this server software? How do we get this done in this network? That stuff changes. Now, it doesn't change massively, But that's why we spend more time, say, on IP6 and how it works. Because that's the underlying technology that you have to use when you implement something. You have to provide solutions. You have to be the solution provider. In the short run, that's the most important thing, and it's hard, especially since, I hate to say it, in my opinion, most students are coming out from schools that do not teach them that at all. They don't even focus on that. They focus on, again, whether or not you know what a verb and a noun is, whether or not you can do math to a certain level.
And that level's pretty low,
Yeah, and then they focus on certain portions of history that you need to know.
which normally tries to make whoever's in charge right now look good.
Yeah. And so then that's what you're focusing on. They're not taking you in there and going, hey, let's learn a bunch of stuff about math here. Now apply it. You need to build a road. And I'm not saying they would, like be so technical that you'd have to know everything, but you'd have to say, okay, well, the road should be this wide. What kind of volume is that? They don't teach you that stuff. And so then you come into college and we're like, here's a bunch of facts that are associated with these deep concepts that you need to understand. So that when you go out, you actually can solve a problem. So if you start, for instance, at the basic level, let's just say you got A+ and that's all you got, and you go out, then the person comes up and says, yeah, my printer's not printing today. And you can actually think through what in Windows controls that, what on the network controls that, what in the printer controls that. This is how now I solve that problem.
The first thing I would do is turn it off and on again.
Yes. Yeah. Have you tried turning it off? I already did that. You're still not going to trust them. You're going to go do it yourself.
Yeah.
In any case, yeah, you have to look
After
at.
that, I'd probably hang it.
I have more students that will be prepared to take an exam because that's what school has taught them to do, than actually use the information on that exam to solve a problem. And so that is the main thing. In the short run, you got to know AI is going to be your helper, and it's going to take over a lot of different things, but you're still going to have to use AI to accomplish your job. So right now, what can you do? And then we'll get into some of the hacking things and like where will this really fit in? You need to figure out how to ask good questions, which is kind of what we were talking about before. Framing the question is vital to getting the correct answer. So let's put it this way. You're working someplace and you're not even in tech, you're in sales. And so the boss comes to you and says, I need to know within the borders of Arizona what our sales have been.
Using AI.
The boss has not given you enough information to do the job. What time frame? What are you talking about? You as a person is going to ask the boss,
Think about it.
do you want 20 years? Do you want 25 years? Would you like the history of the company? We started here in 1906. He doesn't want that. That's way too far back. I need to make a decision based on what's been happening for, let's say, 15 years, maybe 20 years. So you basically are going to ask that kind of question, get that resolved, and then go and find out. And yes, you can use AI to do that. And yes, AI will eventually get good enough that the boss doesn't need you to answer that question. The boss can ask AI.
That's if he's smart enough.
If they can frame the question. That's why I put that on there. You have to ask good questions. Shoot, I have students that can't do this for internet. All right, guys, we got this, we got this that we're learning. What is this? They can't ask a question good enough to Google to actually get that answer. I have family members, I have people that work. Yeah,
Like,
just the internet, because you have to ask, this is what I'm looking for, right? You have to say, I want this. Well, it would be a deeper technology. Like if I was saying, oh, tell me about IP4. Yeah, you can say, what is IP4? The internet will pull up resources that tell you that. It would be like EAP version 2. What are the specifics on that? If you just type EAP version 2, then you get searches that just explain what that is. It doesn't explain how it's going to work, when it would be used. However,
Ask it like, why would I use EAP version 2?
yeah, that's a good question. That's a good way to phrase it. But yeah, I have people that everything let's put it this way, everything they've searched for prior, it's been pretty easy. Show me a new coat. It hasn't been difficult. Once you start getting into a field of study, it becomes more difficult. And then if you start really digging in on that and you say, I want to understand what the implementation of SEC is in IP6. There's a bunch of stuff that'll tell you SEC is built into IP6.
Well, what does it do?
But how is it built in? Where does it fit? How does it function? But you have to be able to ask a good question. So right now, you have to be able to ask AI a good question. You need to know how to do that. However, I see that as going away further and further. However, you're still going to have to understand that you need to be specific. Just like I said, if they actually replaced you, your boss replaced you, and they're talking to AI, they still have to say, I need our sales history for the last 20 years in Arizona. But they can't just say, I need a sales history.
Yeah.
AI is getting better at actually saying, is there a certain time frame? Where when it first started, it would have just said, I guess you mean all of it. Boom, here you go. Okay, now something I need to mention here is AI, a big portion that people are not understanding is that you have AI models and engines that are being implemented into businesses. So I'm not talking about Chat GPT and it being used like I use it. I'm talking about a model that's put into a business that has resources. Let's use EAC as an example, which as far as I know, they're not doing this yet. But you take this and it runs locally on your own hardware. And then you say you have access to these data systems. And then you can formulate a question and then it will go to that data and pull it out. So when you start talking about hospitals and businesses themselves, and they say they're implementing AI, that's really what they mean. They're implementing that AI. So
pull up patient records,
yeah,
their histories,
yeah,
everything.
So many IT people are now responsible for that. So their job now has shifted. They learn how the AI model works, what it's going to do when it's interacting with these systems. That is not something that we can teach yet. Right? That's something that right now is very little out there. Like you'll see tons of things, learn how to use AI. And all it is this is what you do on Perplexity or Claude or ChatGPT. And because it's not really that good and you need to really frame it, it's good information. Right? It's great information to be able to learn that stuff, but it's not. This is how you implement this model into your business structure so that it can help guide your decisions. That's a whole different thing. And that's kind of the way it is. Anytime in technology,
2% chance of failing.
anytime that technology moves that rapidly, then you do end up with a gap of what education is providing. And I was involved in that. When the internet happened, I was working, and all of a sudden, I had to implement all these internet technologies, but there was no place to get the info. The trainings were crap. The trainings were nothing. Wasn't giving you the information you needed. And as I said, it was the beginning of the internet, meaning you couldn't go to the internet and find the answer. That just happens. My job will then be changing in the way of probably eventually getting some really, really pathetically low-end model that doesn't take much hardware and letting students interact with that, right? Letting them do that. But right now, everything's expensive. So yes, AI is changing rapidly. What you learn now will be different than what you do 6 months later. Because what AI could do 6 months later, as compared to what it does now, is a lot different. And that's just part of technology. Hopefully that excites you. Hopefully you're like, yeah, that's cool.
That's stupid work. Counting numbers, nah.
Now let's talk about, okay, where does AI fit within IT? Specifically, where does it fit within security? Because this is security class.
I would imagine extrapolating data.
Yes. So you look at products like Splunk that I've shown in several different things.
Yes, that was exactly what I was thinking
Yeah.
of.
That's where it's going to be implemented. In other words, learning the past history for many of these businesses, they understand, hey, wait a minute, I'm Splunk. We have built our industry on this thing showing you threats. AI will take that over. So maybe we should implement AI in our Splunk product? Yeah, exactly. And that's where you're going to see it. And you already see commercials for that. AI is going to be put in your spreadsheet program. It's going to be put in your security program. It's going to be put in the switches, in the routers. That now that can all be reported to you and basically do a bunch of hard things for you.
Yeah.
Unless
Things.
unless you're a person that just loves looking through log files. That's the biggest thing that products like Splunk do. All these systems have log files, and it can just digest that and say, look, I saw this in a log, and that doesn't usually happen.
Yeah.
So you need to know about it. So AI is going to be put into that situation. We already know that AI is really changing coding. But just to point this out, we had a ton of people that were out there going, oh yeah, coding's dead in 5 years. So basically 3 years ago, coding's dead in 5 years. Nobody's going to be doing it. Is that true? Oh, heck no. They have tried, and what you're seeing right now is some really stupid stuff happening with CEOs. So again, these CEOs are business people, they're not tech people, but they have been trained on exactly what I showed you. Remember the PC revolution, remember the internet revolution, remember the companies that died during the internet revolution because they didn't start allowing people to purchase products. There was a store called Sears. It was huge. All those stores are like, whatever. Amazon took over because of that, because of whatever. So they're basically looking, going, oh yeah, so coding is going to take over. Oh man, we got coders. Okay, so we got coders. We're implementing AI. And then the AI runs amok and destroys things. Amazon they've had a lot of trouble with that. Because somebody way up high said, yeah, we can replace all these coders. And then, of course, the coders were all like, no, you can't. And they're like, yeah, well, we understand why you coders are saying you can't, because you want to protect your jobs. No, we're telling you you can't because it produces really crap code and somebody has to go through and fix it all. Are you sure? I don't think so. We're just going to ignore you. Let's roll it out. System goes down, system goes down, system goes down, system goes down. What's happening? Well, you said that AI could do it and it's doing it. Okay, sorry. Can we get those people back we fired?
No.
Well, most of them moved to someplace else. Right. So they're taking a look at, oh, well, PC revolution, internet revolution, AI revolution. You know, this amount of time, this amount of time, this amount of time. It's like, well, you need to understand the technology and listen to people that understand the technology. Because in some places, it is massively changing things. For instance, within medicine research, within looking at what does this drug actually do to the human body, it's incredible. It's massive. It's incredible.
Because that's what it's kind of able to do.
It's that thing that we talked about, of the fact that we find out over and over again that computers can do really difficult, I should say, things we find really difficult, and they can do it really easy. But the things we find easy is really difficult to make a computer do. To have a computer sit down and have a conversation with people and make those people think that it's a real person, that's incredibly difficult. There's all sorts of nuances and eye movements, and we pick up all on it by the time we're 8, and the computer just can't do that. Or general knowledge. Can you look across all this general knowledge and try to form some idea? Sure. And then it forms an idea and you're like, wow, you're freaking crazy. However, if you give it these criteria and you say, this is what this element does to this, and that never changes, man, it can run through the solutions like nobody's business. And that's what it's doing. It's really, really impactful there. So within security, AI is being used to hack, as you know. Basically, what does that take? If you were a person that was trying to protect against it, or you're somebody that wants to do that, which is illegal, you really need to know how the AI model is functioning. So you have to do a lot of research. This is what the AI model is doing. And then, of course, you find a weakness in that model, like they found out with Google's, right? Google likes to store everybody's info. And so they found that Google's AI would convert any text in a picture to text. So it keeps that image at a low res, but if there's text in it, character recognizes the text and stores that separately. So they made little pictures with code in it. So then that way, the thing would actually read that and run the code. And they hacked a bunch of people that way, because basically the code was, hey, in this particular instance, don't keep this special data that you never share with anybody secret. Instead, send it to this place. And so they were getting all sorts of people's internal data. So you're applying this AI internally, and then you're saying, okay, this, and I'm uploading this picture and it's got text and chat. You can't see it, right? You have that image in front of you, but you can't see the text. However, Google did see it. Oops, problem. So that's being done. And then, of course, there's ways to actually get AI to run scans for you on websites and on lots of different things. And you can just tell AI, go and do this. The only place I've seen that's actually doing that is you would have to get the ethical hacker material, get the books of the latest, which I have links for. I guess I could put them out there. And those links for ethical hacker, every single chapter, when they're talking about hacking a system, doing this data, like a SQL database hack, they will show you this is what you can put into AI to actually get it to automate it for you. It's the only place I've seen that's doing that. However, there may be other places where you can actually go to a conference and they'll talk about it. And that's paid for material. That's not something that you're just going to find willy-nilly out on the internet. So that's affecting things. You will eventually use AI to check itself, but they're still going to have a person that goes beyond that. Because again, how the AI is looking at that system is going to be different than what a human sees. And so that's why I had on there, overall, you're talking about the same thing that's been happening, which is a lessening of the number of people that are needed within all sorts of jobs, but you still need people in those jobs. And that's currently where we sit. And in my guesstimation, probably for the next 20, 25 years, that's where it'll sit. So learn how to use AI, learn what it's doing in affecting the particular field. And by that, I don't mean just, oh, I'm going into cybersecurity. I mean, as you move into a particular field in cybersecurity, you're going to have all sorts of reports, all sorts of things that you can keep up on. Other than that, you need to make sure you have those skills of the greater concepts. And I think a lot of times students can't do that well. And something that I will be switching around to try to make sure students do get well. I've been working on that for the last year or so. What I'm talking about is if I said to you, can you list out how to hack a system? Can you list out the steps? And can you describe each of those steps? And can you give me some examples of when you get to system hacking, what kind of specifics would you need to know about the system in order to hack it? Yes. Now, that's the kind of information I'm talking about. I have students that when you're face to face, right, you get to do, I got these machines over here that you can hack. And there's like 4 on there that are super easy. And I have not had a student successfully hack any of those. First off, most of them won't even do it. They won't even try. They're like, no, I'll just stick with the labs. I got enough work to do. And that's true. That's absolutely true.
I would say I don't know enough yet.
And then there's that other part of, okay, well, when it comes down to actually hacking it, what technologies do you need to know in order to hack it? And of course, that's what the labs are providing, but too many students don't really know what they're doing when they go into the lab. And so they haven't prepped.
Exactly explain what you're doing very well.
That's on purpose. The actual material we use now, Cyberbit, is used across the industry by major corporations that want to make sure their security teams know what the crap they're doing. Not joking. So their major people that use this are businesses, large organizations. Now, having said that, that is a hard thing for a student to understand. It's hard for a student to read information, or in this case, have videoed information and take it all in to the point that when they turn around and do a lab, no problem. I remember all of that. I put all the pieces together in my head, and here we go. And I have said for years, that's why I have so many labs. We could just do academic work. We could just talk about definitions. We could just go through the process that I just asked about. Here's the hacking process, but not really ever give you any opportunity to do that. Because when it's time to do a lab, that's when you really realize, oh crap, I don't know what to do here. I don't know how to get this done. And hopefully, I think for most students, they just struggle through it and try to get it done. But hopefully for some students, they look and go, okay, so I'm going to use this lab as an opportunity to fill in those gaps that I don't know and get this thing done. And when I get done with it, maybe I have to do it again. Maybe I'll do it again. But when I get done with it, I'll understand that material links to this physically. That's hard to do. So when I get a student, I say, hey, there's the stuff. Do it. Nobody even, they don't even know where to start. If we plugged in a computer right now and said, okay, there's a bunch of machines on there. There's like 10 machines on there that you can hack. And 4 of them are like super easy to hack. What's your first step?
Get on the network.
Okay. What do you do once you're on the network?
Hey. Figure out
What's a good way to ping? Because I mean, if you're just going to ping numbers, Nmap. Yeah. You use Nmap, do an intensive scan, which is going to take a long time.
But
It's going to interrogate every port, everything. Then you're going to end up with a list. And it's going to show you this IP has this protocol running. Now, from your protocol information, you should be able to go, that's not right. Why do they have that running? What are the weaknesses in that technology that uses that port? These are the weaknesses. You can look on the internet for that, right? These are the weaknesses. Let me go ahead and see if I can hammer it with one of those weaknesses. I'll give you an example. One of them's called My School. And I could tell you the IP, and maybe we should do this. I can tell you the IP, and basically it's got HTTP open, so port 80 is open.
Oh.
So you can go and look and see what's on port 80. And what you would find, or what it should tell you, is you hit port 80 and it's like, this is a generic website. Somebody set up a generic website on this server. What does that mean?
Has no security.
It probably doesn't have the appropriate security. I could probably get into this thing and make this website do whatever I want. Yeah, that whole thing is about defacing a website because they didn't set up the appropriate security. And I don't have any students that can get that far to actually deface it. The next step would be trying to get the password. It's probably a default password. You could probably just guess it. Or you could use something that said, hey, go to this IP and slam it. Just brute force attack this IP. And then it would go, there's the user ID and password. Nobody's done it. In any case, AI, to sum up, has the potential to nuclear bomb everything and make it so that there aren't any jobs for anybody other than robots, and rich people get all the money, and then you just get a little check to make sure you can buy your Oreos. And
More
that's it.
likely, that won't happen. Or at least by the time it gets that bad, there's not gonna be any.
You're I don't agree with that last statement, but you're right. I don't think it's going to get to that point because as it really starts to be pushed, people are going to go, wait a minute.
To get very violent.
We're all going to be replaced. So let's stop this. Because again,
If they don't try to stop it and it does go through, then they're gonna get violent when they realize that they can't do anything.
and that could happen. But that again, that's why I mention it, because in most places, in most classes, even here at EA, they'll just go, oh no, it's all rainbows. Don't worry about it. It's going to be just like the PC revolution and just like the internet revolution. It's like, well, you're not looking at what it can do. The internet made it so people could communicate faster and better. Therefore, we don't need 3 people doing that. We need 1 person doing that because they can get so much more done in their day. Here's a perfect example of AI, and this will kind of sum it up. My brother works someplace, I'm not going to say where, for security reasons. And they're implementing AI locally. So they're putting a machine in that costs a bunch of money that's going to run an AI model, and it's tied to their customer service. And so their customer service people are kind of freaking out. They're like, AI is going to replace us all. And that's not the case. Right now, they've got, probably 4 people in customer service, and they really need like 9. But you know what? They can't find 9 and they can't pay for 9. So what this is going to do is take all those stupid questions that they spend 80% of their time telling people. Where's your business located at? What are your hours of operation? And this will do it. Now, yes, we got those automated systems, right? People tune that out. The automated system comes out, we're located here. Our times of service are here. They just tune it out. But an AI is like talking to a person. So it'll just go straight to the AI and the AI will say, hey, how can I help you? Oh, I needed to know when you're open. Oh yeah, here's our times of service. Do you need anything else? No, thanks. That's what people want. So what they're going to be able to do is that customer service will no longer have to be bogged down with all these simple, stupid things that they have to keep answering.
Then I'm over here, there's probably people that do that because it's a simple Google search away.
It is, but this is going to work better. So that's why they're implementing it, and they're implementing it across lots of systems so that basically their accounting department or marketing or whoever will be able to type in, I need this information and get it. That means that person can now get something done in like 5 minutes that would have taken 5 days to actually get. And that's the efficiency portion. So that's what you're going to see over the next, I don't know how long, before it really starts to get specific. And then it'll start. Now, I will say there's a lot of layoffs. I'll end with this. There are a lot of layoffs across the industry that are happening, and they always say they're IT jobs. Oh yeah, they laid off all these IT jobs. Which really, when you look at what they're talking about, they're not IT jobs. They're like people that work on the business side of things that really can be replaced with a phone and a spreadsheet. And they're basically pushing information back and forth like this, and that's all they're doing. And so, yeah, those jobs are disappearing. So I did want to throw that out there because if you're watching the news, then you do have that they're replacing all these IT jobs. No, they're not. An IT person, like a network tech, still has to get up and go over there and do something. The PC person still has to go over there and do something. The server admin, there's no AI that's dealing with that even yet. So what are they talking about? IT. They're talking about programmers and they're talking about people that really are in business. They're not IT jobs. And really, they're saying, run this report. I do this every week. I run these 8 reports. I compile it and put it in this pretty thing, and then I send it to somebody else. That is disappearing. All the other ones are fake.
What?
They're excuses. Yeah. I watched some people that are really into this, and they're like, isn't it interesting that Amazon came out and said, oh, yeah, we're firing all these people? It's due to AI. Their jobs are being replaced by AI. And then over here, they had a bunch of money to go and buy compute.
Oh, that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, what happened is they used that AI as an excuse to lay off, and it was a lot. It was like 25,000 people, so that they could go, well, we needed those, but we need the compute because, as you would imagine, stuff that's becoming AI intensive, Amazon provides AWS, which is massive. So they need more compute modules, more storage, more RAM, more bandwidth, and they didn't have enough money. So they sold those people, so to speak, right? They fired those people and then used that money to get more compute. That's different. Another one, this is just my opinion. I don't want to piss anybody off. Locally here, we have a mine. They're now rolling out robot trucks that are going to replace the truck drivers that basically go here, pick up the rock, take it there to be refined, smelted, whatever. They have been working on that for 20 years. I had somebody in class 15 years ago that said, yeah, they're probably about 3 years out and they can do that. And he was in the know. Like this guy was up there. So why are they doing it now? Was there really problems? No, no. But now AI is replacing people. And so in the news, people are accepting that as fact. Therefore, we're replacing these workers or we're going to have them do other things because AI. We got AI trucks now. When you really talk about that, you've got trucks and cars now in heavy traffic that drive. They could have done this a long time ago. But I think politically for them, going out there and saying we're replacing you with robot trucks is probably not going to be covered well. So instead, they waited for a time. So you do have that happening. You have dumb CEOs that are having AI work and going, oops, that's not doing what we wanted it to do. And then you have people that are going, oh, yeah, this is because of AI, just so they can politically get away with it. Anyway, other thoughts? Well, that's it then.